Hi Abhishek, good evening. How are you?
Hi, good evening.
Okay, so you have passed out from Amity Law School, and you were my classmate, and you are an enthusiast in politics. So,
My LL
according to you, yeah, yeah, what are you saying?
about to finish in May, hopefully.
Oh, it will definitely happen. Uh, According to you, how do you determine a good policy?
See, Akars, basically, if we talk about the politics or policies, these two are very
Hmm.
different terms. If we are going to talk about policies and what is basically in today's time, like unfortunate that many policies are written and then left to slow rot over the time, like, right? So basically, if some policies are being given in the today's time, and if some policies were are from the very previous time, so what was a good policy 5 year ago may not be the right policy today. It's obvious. So those out but still existent policies can expose the organization to risk. And if they are enforced and complied within the organization, then
Hmm.
basically it will definitely take some leads and take some advantage to the person which we are working upon. So, from my point of view, if you're talking about the effective policy management, that requires the policy life cycle have a regular maintenance schedule. Basically, in my recommendation, that every policy goes annual review process to determine if a policy is still an appropriate policy for the organization, or some legislature they want to rank their policies on different risk level. Then from the periodic review cycle, like some annually and some after some time, every years. So every
Hmm.
3 years, every 2 years, in my opinion, best practice is for every policy is undergo an annual review. So it's not possible, because there are various policies which are going on into the parliament, and there are a very vast system resolving that particular policies. So a system of accountability and workflow facilitate the periodic review process. So if you are talking about the due date for completion, like they are very, like understanding the policies, what are the exceptions of the policies, what how the policies will be compliance over particular thing, and the effectiveness of the policies will be concerned according to the day to day time. Like
Right.
if we are from the law background, and if we must focus upon some particular thing like Indian Penal Code, if you're talking about Indian Penal Code, that's the law which were made before independence. Like
Hmm.
when Britishers were ruling in our
Right.
country, the 1860 Indian Penal Code is still prevailing in our country. So these laws and these policies must be cross-check with the ambit and purview of the today's time, because we know that the era of 1860 and the era of 2022, there is a large gap between these two era and these two cycles. So we can't
Definitely.
assume or we can't presume that 1860 law will be beneficial in 2022. So we
Hmm.
must have checks and balances upon it, and slowly, gradually, if 1860 law is still prevailing, that's the we can say that's the loopholes in our policy system, and that's the loophole in our legislature system, that these laws are still prevailing. Like even
Hmm.
if various laws, not only Indian Penal Code, there are various laws which is inconsistent with the today's life. So in my point of view, these policies must check upon some point of time, and the right policies today will be out of date, which were from the before of the big. So but still policy existence and the organization, and this is the unfortunate points, and this is the unfortunate uh, contradiction which are prevailing in our country. So basically, in my point of view, these are the basic scenario and these are the basic points we should must focus upon, and the policies which were put on in the era like before independence and after independence also. There are various
Right.
provisions which are incorporated in constitution, which are incorporated in various acts. So after cross check according to the time to time from the various point of view, so these must be cross checked and these ponder upon, like the legislature have a greater responsibility, and they should know how to practice these policies in today's time. So these are
Mm.
the various concerns which I must put forward upon in your podcast channel. So this will help and enhance the effectiveness of a good policy.
Right. So, what are some of the policies or the laws that you think that should be amended with current times?
Basically, Indian Penal Code. Like in
Right.
Indian Penal Code, if you're talking about section 124,
Mm.
124 sedition law, these law talks about the sedition law, because sedition law were made by the Britishers when they were ruling in our country. So in
Right.
today's time, in today's perspective, in 2022, these law must be cross-checked and these section must be incorporated by today's time. Because
Right.
if we are like if some person is contravening, or if some person is determining the various aspect of sedition law, if I am against the government, if I am criticizing the government, that makes
Mm.
in the purview of the sedition law. So these should be cross-checked, overrated by the Indian legislature of our country. And apart from section 124, there are various provisions related to section 144, unlawful assembly. If various provision related to that particular CRPC also. In CRPC, there are various provision incorporated. So last year, the Farm 3, the Farm Law Bills has been incorporated by the Parliament in the Constitution. But due to you can say peer pressure or people pressure, they incorporate that particular farm law in 2021 or 2020.
Right.
The parliament has removed that particular thing from the bills are passed, because in UP there were election, and political parties knows very well that if we don't remove that particular laws, if we don't remove the particular act, then we should must suffer from that particular consequences, and they have lose and consequences in the form of reducing the seats in the UP Vidhan Sabha. So
Right.
these are the various concern by the political party, and they know how to manipulate the person, how to manipulate the citizens of our country. They know the basic role model of that particular person, and the basic criteria which are involved in that particular analysis is overlooked by the Indian parliamentary system, or even the political party are very well known about the consequences and effect of that particular thing. So these are the various policies, and these are the various acts which must be overlooked by the Indian parliamentary system as well as the state legislature.
Mm. Right. So, India as a country and a population is very huge, right? So, how do you think that we should make policies that balances the right of everybody that is in the country?
If you are talking about the youth concern related policies, so I must focus upon some youth originated policies, or even you can say national youth policies. Like it seeks to define the vision of the government of India for the youth of the country. And if we talked about the national youth policy 2014,
Mm.
basically identifies the key areas in which action is required, where not enough is being done to enable youth development and to provide framework for the action of all stakeholders. And these national youth policies of the country is basically very much concerned to that particular youth, and importance of youth, like if you talks about the vision, objective and priorities area, then it must focus upon education, because education is the key role model for the youth. Because if we don't get education and if we don't ponder upon the education, then it must leads to the consequences, and that leads to various unemployment sectors. If you're talking about unemployment generation, and these days the youths are not getting employment, and
right,
after getting much of degree, like if they are in the PhD, if they are in the masters, they are not even seeks for the jobs particularly. They are not able to grasp that particular employment generation. So it must focus upon education, entrepreneurship, employment and development skills, and these must be strong and healthy generation in today's time, like health and healthy lifestyle. Even sports are very much concerned about in day-to-day life to empower youth of the country to achieve their full potential, and through them able India to find its rightful place in its community of the nation. Like it should be promotion of social values. Community engagement is also required for national youth policy. If you are talking about like a holistic vision and the holistic approach for the
right,
youth of India, which means to empower the youth of the country to achieve their full potential, and through them enables India to find its rightful place in the community of the nation. Like various stakeholders, if you're talking about various stakeholders, it must work towards meeting five key objective in my point of view. Like they require a specific action in one of the more of the priority area, like identify as important for the youth development, and the policies to recommend a specific future policies invention. Like interventions requires so much of and social justice. I must talk about the social justice because these are very much concerns related to the youth policy. If there is no social justice, then the achievement of national youth policy shouldn't be fulfilled by that particular thing. So create a productivity workforce that makes education empower and to contribute India economic development, employment and skill development, entrepreneurship, health and healthy lifestyle. These are the basic and foremost importance of national youth policy. Sports, promotion of social values, and after promotion of social values, community engagement. If we can't
right,
engage that particular youth in community, then the achievement of social justice and the achievement of youth policy will not be fulfilled. Trust me, the participation in politics and governance does not mean to fight an election, because participation in politics and government means to engage youth outside of the political system, right? So create governance mechanism to the youth can leverage and promote youth engagement in urban governance. So youth engagement, inclusion, social justice, health and healthy lifestyle, education, these are the basic and foremost importance of the national youth policies. And the marginal if you're talking about the marginalized youth and support youth at all risk, so it creates equitable opportunity. And all through the history, like youth has been the harbingers of the change. We all know that youth can do anything in our country, not in our country, in the whole world. Like from beginning independence for the nation to creating a new technologies that
right,
upset the status quo of that particular reforms. And like art, music, culture, any field, if we go to any particular field, youth has the ability to change that particular field. Not only change that particular field, they can do the level best according to that particular priorities.
right. Very well said, Abhinav. So, I would like to ask you, what are your views on National Citizen Amendment Act and Farmers Protest Bill?
These two topics are little controversial. I must
Yeah,
not go in the political scenario, but
right, right.
I should talk the legal point of view, the legal scenario, and what
Yes,
the legality is put upon that particular both Citizenship Amendment Act and the Farm Law Amendment Act, the three
right.
farm law. First of all, I
Yeah,
would like to talk about the Citizenship Act, which were amended in the year 2019. Like
Hmm.
an illegal migrants is a foreigner. First of all, they enters the country without valid travel documents like passport and
Hmm.
visa, and enter with valid documents, but stay beyond the permit time period. So
Right.
basically, if we look into the Indian Constitution, the provision of Article 5 to 11 defines citizenship. If we
Right.
look into the Indian Constitution scenario, and the Citizenship Act 1955, which regulate who may acquire Indian citizenship
Hmm.
or on what ground, basically.
Hmm.
So the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, and illegal migrants may be imprisoned or deported under the Foreigners Act 1946 and the Passport Entry Act 1920. So in 2016, I
Hmm.
must talk about the relevancy of that particular thing. In 2016, also a bill was introduced to amend the Citizenship Act, and the bill sought to make illegal migrants belonging to these six religions. And what is the sixth
Right.
religion? Hindu, Sikh, Buddhist, Jain, Parsis, and Christian
Yeah.
from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan who arrived in India on or before 31st December 2014. So this implies that these group of illegal migrants will not be deported or imprisoned for being in India without valid documents. So if you talked about like 2016 when these bill are introduced in the House,
Hmm.
basically it was referred to a joint parliamentary committee which submitted its report on January 2019. So the bill was passed in the Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha both. No, not Raj Sabha, because the bill was passed by Lok Sabha on January 8,
Oh.
2019. After that, that particular house of the Lok Sabha was dissolved due to the fresh election in 2019. So, however, it lapsed with the dissolution of the 16th Lok Sabha. So,
Hmm.
subsequently, the Citizen Amendment Bill 2019 is being introduced once again in the Lok Sabha in December 2019.
Hmm.
So the 2019 bill seeks to make illegal migrants who are Hindu, Sikhs, Buddhist, Jain, Parsis, and Christian from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan are eligible for the citizenship. After that, there were various controversies which lie particularly to the Citizenship Amendment Act. So, first
Hmm.
of all, it exempts certain areas in the northeast state of the provision, and the bill also makes amendment to the provision related to OCI holders, like a foreigner may also register under the act. So now I would not like to go on the various provision related to that particular act, because we don't have so much time. We have limited time to talks on the various ground. So I must talk about whether differentiating on the grounds of religion is a violation of Article 14, because these questions were in the purview by various Indian politicians. Not only Indian politicians, various stakeholder has raised that particular question. So according to me, like Article 14, we all know that Article 14 guarantees equality to all persons,
Yeah.
including citizens and foreigners both, not only
Hmm.
to the citizen of India, to the foreigner also. So it
Hmm.
only permits law to differentiate between group of people if the rationale for doing so a reasonable purpose. Like the question is whether this provision violates the right of equality under Article 14 or not. So it provides a differential treatment to illegal migrants on the basis of their country of origin, religion, and date of entry into India. So according to me, the bill classify migrants based on their country of origin to include Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And the statement of object and reason in the bill states that India has an historic migration of people with Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and country have a state religion, which he resulted in religious persecution of minorities group previously also. Like further, it is not clear why migrants from these countries are differentiated from migrants from another neighbor country such as Sri Lanka Buddhist state religion, because Sri Lanka were not incorporated in that particular act. So this is also the question why Sri Lanka are exempted from that particular amendment act. So Sri Lanka has a history of which he had the because there is a persecution of religious minorities, like we know that Rohingya Muslims, they are persecuted basically over the years. There have been a report of both Tamil and Rohingya Muslim persecution from their perspective country. So according to me, there is why there is a differential treatment of migrants based particularly, and the foremost important of this bill also exclude illegal migrant residing in area covered by the sixth schedule of the Indian Constitution. So these are the various provisions related to the Citizenship uh, Act 2019. And now I would like to talk in a very brief the key analysis of the three Farm Act, which were introduced by the
Before we move to the
uh,
farmers bill, don't you think the Citizenship Act, discriminates against Muslims?
see, basically, discrimination is not against Muslim, according to my particular point of view. If talking about the right to equality, we must talk about Article 14, that particular thing.
Hmm.
If over the years there have been reports of persecution of Ahmadiyya Muslim in Pakistan, who are considered non-Muslim in that country, and the
Hmm.
mother of atheist in Bangladesh also. So it is unclear why illegal migrants from only 6 specified religious minority have been included in the bill. Like if the perspective of the classification based on the religious persecution of certain minorities in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh both. So it may be
Hmm.
argued that there are other religion minorities in this country living and who face religious persecution and may
Okay.
have illegal migrants to India. So if Muslims like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan, these are the majority community lives in this country are Muslims. So according to me, persecution only can take place when there is a minority are in that particular country. Like these are the religion that are not minority according to me in that particular country. So they are living very well condition, and but apart from that, illegally migrants we're talking about, and in Pakistan, Ahmadiyya Muslim. But in Pakistan, they are not considered non-Muslim and in that country. We should must know about this fact. And these are the basic point where we can say that these provisions are somehow very much incorporated with Article 14 of the Indian Constitution that talks about right to equality and equity basically.
Right. So let's move to the
So
farmers bill.
farmer bills, we must know that the key
Yeah.
three farm acts like
Hmm.
namely Farmer Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Bill 2020, and the
Hmm.
second one is Farmer Empowerment and Protection Agreement of Price Assurance, and the third one is Essential Commodities Act 2020. These are
Hmm.
the three bills which were passed, and these were very in the controversy of the particular state, especially in the western part of UP, Punjab, and Haryana. Basically,
Hmm.
these are the states which who counters very well in that particular bill
Hmm.
were passed by the Lok Sabha. And so the first I would like to talk about the Farmer Produce Trade and Commerce Act 2020. Like these are meant to attract private investors and transform the states of Indian agriculture. Also, we must focus upon APMC, which were in very controversy, has an overriding power over the inconsistent provision of the state. And clause 3 and 4 gives farmer the freedom to engage in intra-state or interstate trade of their agriculture.
Oh.
ठीक है? So according to this act that empowers the central government to frame rules and regulation under this particular act. So what are the issues that were raised by farmers? Because the opposition also argues that the opposition also argued that the benefit under the act would lead to the incorporation of agriculture. We know that since the act does not mention a fixed MSP, minimum
Hmm.
support price, the MSP is minimum support price, and the
Hmm.
local farmer might not find adequate demand for their produce. So most
Hmm.
farmer are small landowners. We all know that
Right.
they
Right.
don't have so much of land acquired in that particular area, and they do not have the means to transport their product to large distances. So
Hmm.
ultimately they will be forced to sell their product in the local market only at a
Hmm.
price lower than the MSP. So these are the key issue concerned by the farmers, and they were very much manipulated by the farmers to the Indian parliament or Indian democracy, and they also talked about this issue to the higher authorities of the government. But we all know that this case will go still very long. Like 1 year,
Definitely.
after 1 year, government revoked that particular the three
Hmm.
farm law bills. And the
Hmm.
second one is Farmer Agreement of Price Assurance Services Act 2020. So this act basically seeks to create a legal framework for
Hmm.
contract farming in India. Like this contract farming is not new particularly, and a
Hmm.
direct agreement with a buyer to sell the product at a predetermined prices. So sponsored entities that may partake in an agreement with a farmer, and that may include individual companies, firms, and society. So farming agreement can cover mutually accepting terms between farmer and sponsor, including the act also provide a three-tier dispute resolution system, right?
Right.
First is conciliation board, comprising representative of parties to the agreement, and the
Hmm.
subdivisional magistrate and the appellant authority. But what is the key issue that is pertaining in that particular act? We should must know about that particular issue. The first one is this principal concern with contract farming is regarding the negotiating power of the party involved. So corporate or rich sponsor may not necessarily pay a fair price to the
Hmm.
farmer. We all know that they can suppress that particular farmer, and for their produce, due to the lack of the farmer's ability to fairly negotiate any sort of long standing legal proceeding, and the further the entire farmer industry will fail into the hands of the capitalists. And these are the main and foremost concern raised by the farmers. Like if we fall into the hands of the capitalistic, then
Right.
who exploit the land and the farmer for their own private needs, impacting the agroecological diversity of the country?
Hmm.
This will definitely harm and uh, differentiate in that particular ecological diversity. And the third one is Essential Commodities Bill 2020. Basically,
Hmm.
Essential Commodities Bill seeks to restrict the power of the government for the production, supply, and distribution of certain key
Hmm.
commodities. But stock limitation on farming produce to be based on a price rise in the market, right? So
Hmm.
the in this bill, there is a key issue which are involved is that like the changes in the regulation of the stock limits were introduced to harness private sector foreign direct investment in the agriculture industry. If you talked about the foreign direct investment, the additionally the stock limit regulation will not be applicable to the value chain participants of the agriculture agreement. And if their stock limits remains within their installed capacity, moreover, this would legitimate holding with the government have no information on the location and ownership of the
Hmm.
stock. So at last, I should must focus upon two or three points like agriculture produce market committee in the marketing board established by the state government to eliminate the exploitation of farmer by intermediaries. So the ground realities of APMC is that against that requirement of mini mandis that are required for the country according to the size, and the present act that overrides the provision of the existing APMC will only create a parallel market, and it will completely different regulation. Both are totally completely different. So APMC is a market where traders will require get a license, pay a fee, and additionally allow the government to obtain price intelligence. But similarly, the state government will lose its ability to regulate the trade of produce with the entry of private sponsor. Moreover, this will lead to the collapse of that particular mandi. And if the mandi is collapsed, then farmers will definitely collapse. And if the farmer is collapsed, the whole system of our country, because we know that the majorly Indian population and Indian citizen,
Oh, yeah.
if we're talking about the percentage of that particular thing, then
Hmm.
then majorly I think more than 60 to 70%, which are the agricultural land in our country, and that agricultural land belongs to the farmers of our country. That's the backbone, and without farmer we cannot imagine our state, and we cannot imagine our nation. So these act will not formulate in the consultation with the actual stakeholder. And who is the actual stakeholder? The farmers. Basically, they fail to provide farmers with guaranteed price, that is minimum support price, oversight of the players and transaction and prices, and do not empower the state government to regulate that particular market. So these are the various concerns, these are the various issues which are involved in that particular clause, and these are the various constitutionality of the laws.
Yes.
And that's and one thing I must ponder upon the points, like the seventh schedule of the constitution, right? Seventh schedule
Hmm.
of the constitution, that gives the power, basically distribution power between the center and the state. Like parliament has the exclusive power to legislate on the subject in the union list, the state has the exclusive power to make on the state
Hmm.
list. And if it is in their concurrent list, then basically both center and the state can legislate upon it. But in case of a
Hmm.
conflict, we all know that the law made by the parliament prevails. But
Hmm.
state list contain like various agricultural issues in 340, in 345, in 346, 318, 28 are relates to the state list. And however, the union and the concurrent list do not refer to the matter relating to the agriculture. So these are the various concerns which were also put in the light of the parliament, or put in the light by which state has already told the center that these basic provision are in the ambit of state. So kindly felicitate upon it by the purview of Indian Constitution, and to determine the constitutionality of any legislation, we all know that doctrine of pith and substance must be put into use. So
Right.
after all, we know that these laws and this bill was basically revoked by the parliament, and they are basically not in light of the Indian Constitution, or light of these basically farm law. So these are the basic analysis, basically we can say, on the farm, the three different farm bill which were
Hmm.
introduced by the Indian Parliament.
Hmm. So there are, I don't want to name the parties.
Uh,
There are some parties or maybe politicians that have some tactics to buy votes. So can
hmm.
you define the tactics that they use?
See, basically, these are the disadvantage of that particular parliamentary system, because we all know that election are a hallmark of any well-functioning democracy. But
Yes.
for any political party, participating in a nationwide election requires significant amount of funds. And
Hmm.
there is the issue of campaigning, where the political parties and their candidate attempt to reach out to the voters. And
Hmm.
in today's time, like in 2014 Lok Sabha election, in 2019 Lok Sabha election, even in various state legislative elections. So in countries where norms regarding election financing are ambiguous and into the legal limits, or to the incorporate donation to the political party, like there are various political party donation which came into account, and there are various several countries, and if you talked about, this is not to say basically because that considerable funds are not generated, and these
Hmm.
exist ample and anecdotal evidence of voters being bribed with cash. Cash does not include only yes, funds or money does not include only cash. It should be in the form of various benefit which will hamper not only election but also the soul of the democracy. So,
Hmm.
for example, in India, the amount from 19.5 million, in a research, it was found that in the eastern state of Assam, like 155 million in the southern state of Tamil Nadu during the 2014 Lok Sabha election. So these are the amount ranging, and these are the huge amount which were basically given to the voters by the political party as a bribe amount. So,
Okay.
so according to me, this is unsurprising and lack of hard evidence, because if you talked about the function and power of the election commission, they also issue code of conduct after before election, but we all
Right.
know that this code of conduct is in the uh, to don't these code of conduct is not so much very helpful in the purview of that particular election, because and apart from that, clearly the idea of vote biting, clearly the idea of vote buying goes against the very notion of a fair election. Like, free and fair election is the basic structure of the Indian democracy. If there is no free and fair election, then the democracy can be collapsed. But in today's time, we all know that how these free and fair election are being incorporated, and
Yes.
these free and fair election is the whole sole authority to take care by the Election Commission of India. And in today's time, various political party is using that particular scenario by giving cash, by giving various freebies. Like, before election, the political party releases manifestos, and in manifestos they incorporated various points which is related to the freebies. Like, if we see in Delhi Vidhan Sabha election, Arvind Kejriwal announces to give free electricity to the person living in that particular state. So these are also come under bribe, because they are giving bribe to particular person to give me the votes, and after giving votes, how they incorporate the things we don't know actually, because after winning the election, no one cares for the people who are living in that particular state. Even we can see in various UP state election, Manipur, Uttarakhand, and Punjab election, the various political party releases their manifestos, and in manifestos there are many freebies which may attracted by the Indian voters to give vote in the favor of that particular concerned political party. So according to me, these must be stopped, and these are against the spirit of the Indian constitution, because a key challenging is that how can one be sure that comparison of consumption patterns of households before and after election actually reflects the role of election, and our and what if other today's time a contesting election is all about you have to contest election by power, by money, not according to the ideology, because these are ideology, your presence, your physical presence will not matter
Right.
in that particular state and in a particular country. But what matters, money, power, muscle power, tussle, these are the prominent features which are incorporated in election system, and these are rotting our democracy system and even free and fair election.
Just hold on 1 second. There is a technical issue. So, Abhinav, can you tell us the difference between right wing and left wing party?
uh, Right wing and left wing.
Yeah.
Basically, according to me, the right wing politics and left wing politics, and you can say right wing and left wing party, these are the two varying ideology, basically, different in their outlook and application. So, according to me, the right wing politics is centered around beliefs that certain social order and hierarchies which are inevitable and natural, right?
Yeah.
So, with this belief being supported by the natural law tradition, and left wing political supports social equality, often in the opposition to social hierarchy or any other form of class division. So, if we talked about analyzing the difference between left wing and right wing, basically right wing is conservative and nationalism both. And
Right.
left wing is liberal and egalitarian ideas. So these
Hmm.
are the basic difference between right wing and the left wing. Apart from that, those belonging to the left spectrum of the politics
Hmm.
believe that society will benefit from an expanded role for the government. And right wing ideology believe that the best outcome for the society is delivered when individual rights and civil liberties are paramount with limited involvement of the government. So
Right.
left wing politics is characterized by the emphasis on equality, fraternity, progress, and reforms. And
Hmm.
apart from left wing politics, right wing politics is characterized by idea of authority, hierarchy, tradition, and nationalism. Nationalism and conservative, these are the two basic concern of the right wing politics. And left wing politics, nationalism is based on social equality, popular sovereignty, and national determination. And it also associates itself with closely national liberalization movement. But right-wing nationalism is influenced by romantic nationalism, where the state derives its legitimacy from the culture it's governed, include language, race, custom, born within the culture. These are the
Hmm.
various issues and which pertains to the right-wing parties. And left-wing political parties is traditionally against religious institution and believe that the state and the religion must be separate from each other. And
Right.
that is called secularism, that was incorporated in 42nd Amendment Act. After the 42nd Amendment Act, secularism word were incorporated in the preamble. Before that, no, there is no secularism word incorporated in the preamble. But state was also secular before adding the secular word. That is not concerned that after adding the 42nd Amendment, after adding the secularism word, there the India is secular. Before that, the India is not secular. Secularism means the basic difference that the India is multi-diversified and all the religion are should be respected in that particular essence, that no other religion can harm other religion in the various perspective. And if we talked about the right wing politics, have always found supporters who believe that religion should play an expanded role in the society. And apart from these differences, there is one must inclusion I should take upon that particular thing, like populistic idea in the left wing do not include horizontal exclusion and will rely more on the egalitarian ideas. And populism is a recurring theme in a right wing politics circle. Like the term right wing has its origin during the day of French Revolution, like 1789, where the supporters of monarchy were seated on the right hall of the National Assembly. But the term left wing has a similar origin during the French Revolution also, where anti-monarchy revolutionaries were seated on the left side of the hall. So these are the various left wing and right wing differences, and it's a featured topic in the political segment, which are very important in day to day's life. So liberal in liberal context, left wing is in politics is more liberal in comparison to the right wing.
Right. One last question that I want to ask you. Do you think democracy as a form of government works, or should we incorporate a new system of government?
Basically, see, if we talked about the democracy part, because democracy is a very wide concept, and if we gone to the democracy part, I don't think that there is a various provision which are much important and focus upon that particular words. Like
Hmm.
democracy means rule by the people, like for the people, by the people, and
Right.
the people, for the people, and by the people, right? So basically the essence of the democracy is to rule by the people. Like it is a form of a government in which the people have the authority to deliberate and decide legislation. Like I know there are various provision incorporated in the Indian constitution, and the separation of power is also distributed, like legislature have different function, executive have different function, and judiciary have different function. But
Right.
apart from that, no one has the absolute power, because we know that absolute power is the mm, uh, uh, is the main curse of that particular democracy. And it works absolutely like if absolute power given to the particular person and absolute power given to the particular government. So what will happen? The essence of the democracy will lower down. And if
Yeah.
creating separate but theoretically, if we talked about the equal branches of the government, even presidential system, parliamentary system, these are the two forms of democracy. Like in India we follow the federal system, parliamentary form of system. So political participation, if you're talking about the democracy, is a political system based on the representative government and the citizenship participation in the political process. Like freedom, there are various freedom. We talked about the various freedom, which is very much important. And there are also different types of democracy, like direct democracy, representative democracy, constitutional democracy. So the essence of democracy is still maintained. But I don't think apart from this democracy system, we should follow another form of system, because at last we have the option to select any government according to our choice. Like if the government is not facilitating different functions, and if government is not absolutely working according to the point of view of people, so we have the power to remove that particular government after every 5 years. These are
Right.
the essential and foremost characteristics of any democracy. And we know that in India, there are various freedoms by which we can also express our point of view time to time. Like if we can see in the farm law bill or citizenship amendment act, there are various protests going on across the countries. So these are the basic structure of the democracy. If we have the power to deliberate upon something, like if we are the whole sole authority, and democracy as a system of government, like
Hmm.
these democracy definitely have the various point of view in which we can say that the parliamentary education, the parliamentary procedure according to the rules and procedure of the democracy is basically the foremost importance. And I don't think we should need to follow any other such type of activities apart from democracy, by because democratic society with respect to individual and their rights to make their own choice, like tolerance of difference and opposing
Hmm.
ideas. We know that we are living in country India, where I must not follow the idea of yours, but we should respect that particular behavior pattern, and we should must respect their differences, ideologies. These are the features of the Indian democracy. And if we talk about equity, like valuing all the people and supporting them to reach their full potential, and each person has the freedom of speech, association, to move in the any part of the country, to freedom of belief, to movement, to justice, social justice, treating everyone fairly in the society and in the court. So these are the key principle of the democracy, where liberal democracy, representative democracy, and the responsible government, a party or a coalition of a party must have the support of the majority member. And we all know that if we follow the democratic system, there are various ways to resolve different views and conflict peacefully. Like we suppose I and you have different opinion or different conflicts on different matters, then we should sit down on a particular platform. We should talk on that
Right.
particular various issues, and then we can resolve that particular thing. So these are the essence, these are the basic foremost characteristics. If we follow like in the era of a king, where king was the ruler, so what happened, like if I don't follow the rules of the king, then it's up to the manner of the king that what he should do or what he should not do. So these are
Yes.
the various concern, like respect for human dignity. Or we
Hmm.
all know that respect of human dignity in day to day's life is very much important. Like even government has the respect to their citizen, like freedom to act, speak, or think freely, equality before law, safe and secure community, good governance that is efficient, transparent, and responsive, and ability to hold elected representative accountable. So I think and I believe that democracy is an integral part of a country, and democracy can bring changes according to the ways of people. of the people. People can think over it, people can ponder upon it, people can also felicitate upon it, and they can also advise the government to the particular policies, and government can make the policies which are people friendly, which are citizen friendly, and which are beneficial to the political party. Not only political party, the essence of the democracy, that is citizen can enjoy
Right.
that particular democracy. So I guess, I believe that democracy should be prevail, and there is no other alteration that democracy can be revoked, or democracy should be not there in that particular era.
Right. Winston Churchill also said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for every other form. So,
Yes.
yeah, Abhinav, it was very nice to talk to you. I will just stop the recording right here. Just wait.